Imagine being so emotionally powerful that no one's words or actions can trigger you. You walk through life with unwavering calm, unaffected by the chaos around you. Sounds like a superpower, doesn't it? But mastering your emotions isn't just a skill for the elite. It's something anyone can learn. Today, we're going to dive into how to never get angry or bothered by anyone, and truly take control of your emotional responses, no matter the situation. This isn't just a quick fix. This is the mindset of a person who commands their emotions instead of being ruled by them. 1. The power of emotional detachment. Break the chain of reaction. The first step in mastering our emotions is to cultivate emotional detachment. This doesn't mean that we suppress or ignore our feelings, but rather, it's about observing them without identifying with them. In Buddhist philosophy, we are taught that emotions like anger arise when we become attached to an event, a person's words, or a situation. We tend to take things personally, and this personal attachment fuels our emotional reactions. But emotional detachment teaches us that we don't have to react immediately to every emotion that arises. We can simply observe it and allow it to pass, much like clouds in the sky. In moments of anger or frustration, if we can take a pause and observe the emotion without judgment, we begin to break the cycle of automatic reactions. For example, when someone says something hurtful, rather than instantly reacting with anger or defensiveness, stop for a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and notice what you're feeling. Are you angry, hurt, frustrated, or maybe even fearful? Once you've recognized the emotion, let it go. Just as clouds come and go, so do our emotions. By doing this, you begin to detach from the emotion itself and free yourself from its grip. When we practice emotional detachment, we realize that anger is not who we are. We are simply the observer of our emotions. This shift in perception allows us to stop the chain of reaction before it spirals out of control. 2. Reprogram your mind, the what-if mindset. Shift our minds are incredibly powerful. However, we often allow them to lead us into negative and unproductive thought patterns, particularly when it comes to situations that trigger anger. We might ask ourselves, why did they say that? Or, what do they mean by that? These questions, although natural, often lead to an emotional spiral that strengthens anger and frustration. But Buddhism teaches us that we can reprogram our minds with the power of perspective and curiosity. The what-if mindset shift is a tool that allows us to change our thought patterns from a negative, reactive mode to one of curiosity and growth. Instead of reacting with anger, ask yourself, what if this situation is a lesson for me? Or, what if this person is going through something that I don't understand? These simple questions not only diffuse the intensity of our anger, but also open the door for greater understanding, empathy, and personal growth. For example, if someone criticizes you in a harsh way, instead of thinking, how dare they say that? Ask yourself, what if this is an opportunity for me to practice patience or to learn something about myself? By shifting your perspective, you are no longer bound by the impulse to react. You begin to create space for a more thoughtful and measured response. The what-if mindset encourages us to see every interaction as a chance to grow, and not just as a potential trigger for our emotions. 3. The power of self-sovereignty. Own your emotional realm. Self-sovereignty refers to the idea that we are the rulers of our own emotional world. In Buddhism, this is a profound teaching. No one else has the power to make us feel anything unless we allow it. Others might say or do things that challenge us, but how we feel in response is entirely within our control. The power of self-sovereignty lies in recognizing that our emotional state is our responsibility, No one can truly make us angry, sad, or upset unless we give them permission to do so. This realization is incredibly freeing because it places the power back into our hands. When we allow others to trigger us, we are essentially handing over control of our emotional realm. However, by claiming our emotional sovereignty, we empower ourselves to respond with wisdom, peace, and emotional maturity. When someone attempts to upset you, instead of reacting impulsively, take a moment to center yourself. Remind yourself, I control how I feel. I own my emotional world, and no one can make me feel anything unless I choose to let them. This practice is about reclaiming control, and as you do, you will find that you feel less reactive to the world around you. You will become the calm in the storm. 3. The power of self-sovereignty. Own your emotional realm. Self-sovereignty refers to the idea that we are the rulers of our own emotional world. In Buddhism, this is a profound teaching. No one else has the power to make us feel anything unless we allow it. Others might say or do things that challenge us, but how we feel in response is entirely within our control. The power of self-sovereignty lies in recognizing that our emotional state is our responsibility. No one can truly make us angry, sad, or upset unless we give them permission to do so. This realization is incredibly freeing because it places the power back into our hands. When we allow others to trigger us, we are essentially handing over control of our emotional realm. However, by claiming our emotional sovereignty, we empower ourselves to respond with wisdom, peace, and emotional maturity. When someone attempts to upset you, instead of reacting impulsively, take a moment to center yourself. Remind yourself, I control how I feel. I own my emotional world, and no one can make me feel anything unless I choose to let them. This practice is about reclaiming control, and as you do, you will find that you feel less reactive to the world around you. You will become the calm in the storm. 4. Energy transmutation. Transform anger into high vibration power. Anger is an incredibly powerful emotion, but it doesn't have to be destructive. In fact, Buddhism teaches us that we can transmute anger into higher forms of energy, such as focus, creativity, and motivation. Rather than letting anger drain our energy and lower our vibration, we can use it as fuel for something constructive. This process is called energy transmutation. When we feel anger rising, instead of suppressing it or acting on it immediately, we can redirect that energy into something more positive. For instance, you might use the anger you feel to dive into a creative project or tackle a task with newfound determination. You could also use the energy to exercise, channeling it into physical movement. The key is to move the energy out of the emotional body and use it to elevate your state of being. The act of transforming anger into high vibration power doesn't mean ignoring or denying your feelings. It simply means acknowledging the emotion, feeling it fully, and then redirecting it in a way that serves your personal growth. As you continue to practice this, you will find that anger no longer has the ability to drain you. Instead, it becomes a source of fuel that propels you forward in life. 5. The art of emotional alchemy, turning toxic energy into gold. Emotional alchemy is a powerful concept in Buddhism that teaches us to turn negative emotions into sources of wisdom, strength, and personal growth. It encourages us to take toxic energy, like anger, frustration, or resentment, and transform it into something valuable, such as understanding, compassion, or clarity. When we experience emotions like anger, they can feel overwhelming. However, Buddhism teaches us that these emotions, rather than being obstacles, can be raw materials for transformation. The key is how we approach them. Instead of resisting or suppressing them, we fully experience the emotion and then transform it. Like an alchemist works with lead to create gold, we can work with negative emotions to create something of higher value. Take anger as an example. It arises when we feel wronged or misunderstood. Anger is powerful, but it's energy. If we harness that energy, instead of letting it consume us, we can use it for positive change. Anger can teach us about our boundaries, our needs, and what's important to us. When anger rises, we can stop and ask, what is this anger trying to show me? What lesson can I learn from it? By practicing emotional alchemy, we see that anger isn't inherently bad. It's how we respond to it that matters. We learn to ask meaningful questions to understand the deeper layers of the emotion, like, what values have been threatened that are causing this anger? Or, how can I use this anger for growth? These questions help us reframe the emotion and use it as a tool for positive change. Emotional alchemy also involves accepting negative emotions like anger, fear, or sadness, rather than avoiding them. By accepting them, we make them part of our path to growth. Instead of holding on to negativity, we let these emotions become opportunities for self-reflection, deeper understanding, and connection with others. Next time frustration rises, practice emotional alchemy by pausing and reflecting. What is causing your frustration? Is it fear, unmet expectations, or misunderstanding? How can you reframe the situation to see the bigger picture? By transforming your perception, you turn toxic emotions into power, helping you become more compassionate, understanding, and at peace. This practice involves patience. When experiencing difficult emotions, it's easy to want them to go away quickly. But emotional mastery means sitting with emotions, allowing them to reveal their deeper truths. With time, we let go of the negative charge they bring and find wisdom and clarity. Emotional alchemy isn't about eliminating negative emotions. It's about integrating them into our lives in a way that fosters healing and growth. Every time we apply emotional alchemy, we refine ourselves, becoming more attuned to inner peace and bringing more love and compassion into our interactions. 6. Silence as power. The mastery of non-engagement. In today's fast-paced, highly reactive world, we are often encouraged to respond immediately to every situation, especially when provoked. The constant pressure to react quickly, whether through words or actions, can leave us emotionally drained and reactive. However, Buddhism teaches us the power of silence and non-engagement as a means of preserving our peace and maintaining control over our emotions. Mastering this practice is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate emotional stability and resilience. Silence as power isn't about being passive or avoiding conflict. It's about recognizing that not every situation requires a reaction. Often, our initial impulse when someone insults us or when we feel wronged is to immediately respond, perhaps with anger, frustration, or defensiveness. However, Buddhism teaches us that not every moment requires us to engage. By remaining silent in the face of provocation, we create space between the stimulus, the external event or words, and our response. This pause allows us to choose a response that is thoughtful and aligned with our values, rather than one driven by impulsive emotions. One of the core aspects of this practice is understanding that we cannot control what others do or say, but we always have control over how we choose to respond. The moment we engage with negativity, whether through a sharp retort, defensive comments, or escalating an argument, we give away our emotional power. Silence, on the other hand, allows us to retain control, protect our peace, and avoid unnecessary emotional turmoil. When we choose to remain silent, we also refuse to participate in the cycle of negativity that often perpetuates conflict. Imagine, for instance, that you are in a heated conversation with someone who is upset or angry. They may raise their voice, make hurtful comments, or try to provoke you into an argument. The natural reaction might be to defend yourself, to argue back, or to try to prove your point. But what if instead you took a deep breath, remained silent, and chose not to engage in the exchange? In doing so, you diffuse the tension, refuse to give power to the negativity, and protect your emotional equilibrium. Silence is a way of disarming conflict, allowing the situation to dissipate without escalating further. Non-engagement is also a powerful tool in preserving our inner peace when dealing with challenging people or situations. Not everyone we meet will be kind or reasonable, and not every situation will be ideal. However, through the practice of non-engagement, we can maintain our integrity and peace regardless of the external circumstances. This doesn't mean we avoid confrontation or suppress our feelings. Rather, we choose the right time and place to express ourselves, using words and actions that align with our highest self. Silence allows us to wait until we have clarity and emotional composure before responding. Silence enables us to practice mindfulness in difficult moments. Rather than reacting based on emotion, silence gives us the opportunity to become more aware of our inner state. We can pause and check in with ourselves. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? How can I respond in a way that is true to my values? This mindfulness allows us to cultivate a deeper understanding of our emotions, and it gives us the chance to act with wisdom rather than simply reacting on impulse. By mastering silence and non-engagement, we create a mindful space in which we are no longer slaves to our emotions, but instead empowered to act with intention and purpose. One of the most profound aspects of silence is its power to shift the energy in a room or situation. When everyone is talking over each other, or emotions are running high, silence acts as a calm anchor in the storm. It has the ability to neutralize negativity, as people are often forced to reflect on their words and actions when faced with silence. In this way, silence becomes a form of communication, a way of expressing that we are not willing to participate in unhealthy dynamics or unnecessary conflict. By remaining silent, we set a boundary that protects our emotional well-being while also promoting peace. Silence can help us build emotional resilience over time. It teaches us patience and self-control as we learn to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Every time we choose to remain silent in the face of provocation, we strengthen our ability to remain calm in the future. We become less reactive and more resilient to the external pressures that once triggered us. Silence also provides a valuable opportunity for reflection and growth. After a tense situation, we can use silence to review our thoughts and feelings, learning from the experience and refining our emotional responses moving forward. 7. Mastering the art of grace under pressure. Be unshakable. Mastering the art of grace under pressure is a transformative and empowering skill. It's about remaining calm, composed and centered, even when life circumstances push us to our limits. In Buddhism, this concept is known as equanimity, which refers to the mental and emotional balance that allows us to remain unshaken by external events. Whether it's dealing with conflict, facing a difficult situation, or navigating a personal crisis, grace under pressure helps us maintain our inner peace while responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Life is full of unexpected challenges. We can't control every situation, and there will always be times when stress, frustration, or even despair seems to overwhelm us. However, what we can control is how we respond. Buddhism teaches us that we are the creators of our own experience. It's not the external events themselves that determine our emotional state, but rather our responses to them. When we learn to remain graceful under pressure, we don't allow difficult circumstances to dictate how we feel or act. Instead, we rise above the chaos and navigate life with poise and inner strength. When we're faced with difficult situations, whether it's a work crisis, a disagreement with a loved one, or a personal setback, the natural human instinct is often to react. We may feel our hearts race, our minds race with thoughts of anger or frustration, or our bodies tense up with stress. However, by practicing grace under pressure, we learn to pause and respond with wisdom rather than reacting impulsively. The first step is recognizing that emotions are temporary. They arise, peak, and pass away. By becoming aware of this, we can prevent ourselves from getting swept away in the storm of emotions. Instead of letting anger, fear, or sadness take over, we can observe these emotions and allow them to move through us without allowing them to control us. Mindfulness is a key practice that helps us master grace under pressure. By cultivating mindfulness, we become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations in each moment. This awareness enables us to identify when we're about to react to a situation with anger or fear. For example, in a heated conversation or argument, when you notice yourself starting to feel defensive or upset, take a deep breath. In that brief pause, you create the space to choose a mindful response, rather than letting emotions control your actions. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to remain calm and centered, no matter what is happening around you. Grace under pressure also involves acceptance, accepting that life is not always going to go the way we want it to. Sometimes things will go wrong, people will let us down, and challenges will arise that feel overwhelming. However, the key to maintaining grace is to accept these moments as they come, without resistance. When we resist reality, when we wish things were different than they are, we create additional suffering for ourselves. But when we accept the present moment, exactly as it is, we stop fighting against what's happening and allow ourselves to respond with clarity and wisdom. Buddhism teaches that resistance to the present moment causes suffering, while acceptance brings peace. For instance, if you find yourself caught in traffic and you're running late, it's easy to become frustrated, anxious, or even angry. But instead of resisting the situation, practice acceptance. Remind yourself that the traffic is beyond your control, and getting upset won't change the outcome. By accepting the situation, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and can use the time in traffic to relax, listen to music, or even practice mindfulness. This shift in perspective allows you to maintain grace under pressure, even in situations that might seem trivial. One of the most powerful aspects of grace under pressure is the ability to respond with compassion, both towards yourself and others. In stressful situations, we often feel pressure to be perfect, to handle everything with ease, or to meet everyone's expectations. This can lead to self-criticism, anxiety, and burnout. However, when we approach ourselves with compassion, we recognize that it's okay to feel stressed, it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to make mistakes. We allow ourselves the grace to be human, and just as we show ourselves compassion, we also extend it to others. When someone else is upset or frustrated, instead of reacting with anger or judgment, we can respond with kindness and understanding. Compassion is not only a tool for remaining graceful under pressure, but it's also a powerful antidote to the negative emotions that arise during difficult moments. Self-sovereignty is another essential element of grace under pressure. It's about understanding that we are the masters of our emotional reactions. While external circumstances may be challenging, we are in control of how we respond to them. When we recognize that our emotional state is within our power, we no longer feel helpless or at the mercy of external events. We become the calm center in the midst of the storm. In moments of pressure, remind yourself that you can choose your response. You are not a victim of the situation. By practicing self-sovereignty, you become unshakable, able to handle even the most intense challenges with grace and dignity. Finally, resilience is a key factor in mastering grace under pressure. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to recover from adversity, and to keep moving forward in the face of difficulty. Life is unpredictable, and there will always be challenges that we must navigate. But the more resilient we become, the less these challenges have the power to knock us off course. Buddhism teaches that resilience is built over time, through consistent practice of mindfulness, acceptance, and equanimity. The more we practice responding with grace, the stronger our emotional resilience becomes. Practical steps to mastering. Grace under pressure. Pause and breathe. In moments of stress, take a few deep breaths. This simple act of pausing creates the space to regain your composure and respond calmly. Practice mindfulness. Regular mindfulness practice helps you become more aware of your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations, allowing you to respond to situations with greater clarity and calmness. Accept what you can't control. Recognize what is within your control and what is not. Let go of the need to control everything and instead focus on how you respond to life's challenges. Respond with compassion. When faced with difficulty, treat yourself and others with kindness and understanding. Compassion helps diffuse tension and promotes a peaceful mindset. Cultivate resilience. Understand that challenges are part of life. Rather than seeing them as roadblocks, view them as opportunities to grow stronger and more resilient. By practicing grace under pressure, you build emotional resilience, maintain inner peace, and become unshakable in the face of life's challenges. You don't have to be perfect or never feel stressed, but by choosing how you respond, you can navigate the storms of life with grace, wisdom, and strength. Anger is a natural response, but it doesn't have to control you. Through the teachings of Buddhism, we can learn to master our emotions, stay calm in any situation, and respond to life with wisdom and compassion. By cultivating emotional detachment, reprogramming our minds, and practicing non-engagement, we can transform anger into power and achieve true emotional sovereignty. Remember, emotional mastery is not about perfection, it's about progress. With each mindful step, you'll become more resilient, calm, and at peace with yourself and the world around you.